Welcome to the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club with your host, the man from the land of Lincoln Heights, that is, David Hernandez, and from the city of San Fernando, Jeffy Giorgenti. You heard it right, Hispanic Republicans. Why? Because brown is the new red, Republican red. So listen up and hear what being a Republican is really all about. Faith, family, and free enterprise. It's time to wake up and see how the chorizo is made and smell the menudo. And who knows, you just may be a Republican after all.
Well, that voice was very familiar to you, wasn't David?
Yeah, I just saw Darren in Georgia.
I know, you just spent 10 days with them. How cool was that? Did you have a great time?
Oh, yeah. It was, 9 days? And that was started in North Carolina, South Carolina, and then Georgia.
So you ready to move to the South?
No.
Well, you never know. I mean, come on.
Well, it was really nice. The food is excellent. But we were there at the time of the year where the weather was perfect. The roads were clean, no homeless encampments. Everybody was polite, happy we were there.
And you don't want to move?
No.
It sounds like a great place to live.
we have too much to do here. And so, but wow, this is like the first time we've been together in 4 weeks.
More than that.
Has it been? Let's see, 3, but 4.
I was off for an entire month. I was off for 4 weeks, which was very productive for me. And then I was back last week by myself. I was by myself. Everybody left me. And then, so it's been 5 weeks since we've seen each other. Well, not seen each other, but since we've been on the air together.
Right. And, it's, and the time goes by quick.
So, yes, I'm going to be old next week.
How are the, how are the farmers markets going?
Actually, they're not doing too badly. I'm picking up another farmer's market now in Agora, so I'll be in Agora on Saturday, every other Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Tomorrow you're in Brentwood?
So I'm in Brentwood on Sundays from 7. I get there usually around 6:30, 7 o'clock. It doesn't open till 9. Stupid me, I thought it opened at 8. No, it opens at 9. I'm ready for 8. I'm ready for work at 8. And then it's till 2 o'clock. So tomorrow we have a lot of vendors that'll be there tomorrow. So if you're waiting to do that last minute Mother's Day shopping, come to the Brentwood Farmers Market. We're here to help you. And then Friday nights I'm in Monrovia. They just extended that till 10 o'clock at night. So I'm there from 5 to 10, which I have to leave Woodland Hills by 2 to get there to set up and get that done.
Well, with daylight savings time, at least people, it's lighter longer and people can shop.
Yeah, they can shop till 10 o'clock.
Yeah. So that's good. And how's the horse?
I have no idea. I haven't seen him. I have to keep getting pictures on my phone. Mm-hmm. He's alive. I know that.
Okay.
My horse trainer's wife was out there grooming him, playing with him. Mm-hmm. I get little videos of him going, "Hi, Mom. Who are you? Where are you?"
Yeah. Well,
listen, I got a lot done while I was off. I got my whole backyard done. I worked on that by myself. I moved 1 ton of stone for the dog run by myself. My jacuzzi's up and running. I'm ready for summer. I'm going to do some planting this weekend.
All your trees are trimmed? Or are they still fallen?
No, the city is taking care of that because they're repaving both my streets.
Oh, okay.
So they've gone through and done all that. But yeah, so I'm going to be planting some succulents, which is going to be interesting. Apparently, there's some beautiful succulents out there. Just FYI, if anyone's interested in planting.
But don't they attract like rats and things like
That's
that?
why I have a rat control company that kills my rats for me.
In a humane way, I'm sure.
I have no idea. I don't care. After listening to one
friends?
eat my walls for 8 months, I'm good. I don't care where they go, what they do, as long as they're not in my house.
There you go. Well, Jeffrey, I'm really excited because we have Brianna with us. And,
I see.
And we were talking before the show that
I worked until 7 o'clock. By the way, I was hauling to get here today.
That when all of these vaccine mandates first came down, when we had John Knox was let go. And,
we need to bring him on. I talked to him, by the way. He wants to come on. I think next week he's out of town for Mother's Day visiting his mom. So happy Mother's Day to you and your mom, John, and we want you here next week.
And so with also Mike McMahon, with some of the...
Yeah, he filled in while I was gone.
Yeah. And then we had, a lot of different people, that fire battalion, the battalion chief from
RJ?
From the West Valley.
Yeah, I think it was RJ, wasn't it?
Yeah, that. And now we have Brianna, who she was in the Air Force. and we'll get into why she's no longer in the Air Force.
I'm assuming it has something to do with the vax mandate.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brianna. Yes.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Of course.
And we're grateful that we have young adults that are going into the service, and we need more of you to go into the service, but maybe they don't want to after we hear your story.
No,
Well, maybe after 2024, things will change.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
Well, so Brianna, now tell our listeners a little bit about you. I mean, now we met in Bakersfield.
Yes.
And we talked a little bit, and it's like, wow, here you are. You're 24.
Yep.
And you were in the military. You're Republican. You have brown skin.
Yep.
But your brown skin your family is Cuban, right?
Yes, so I'm Cuban, Mexican, American. And I grew up here in California. I have 4 sisters. There's 5 of us girls. My dad wanted all boys, and he got all girls.
My mom wanted a boy. She got twins. Girls.
Oh, yeah. Well, it tends to happen. So, so I grew up here, California native, but definitely grew up because of the Cuban side. I think that just understanding the difference in the Cuban Constitution versus the U.S. Constitution, there's such a big difference if you just read those 2 documents. And Cubanos have a sense of, like, we don't take freedom for granted. I think we're still too close to what happened, right? So we're still too close to that, hey, this is where socialism leads to communism, to these ends. And look at our country. We used to be equal with the U.S. dollar, and now we can't even get enough chicken for our population. So it's something that I think Cubanos in general, we tend to be Republican. That's generalizing, but I grew up in that type of but generally Cubanos are.
She's never coming back
because we know, like we know what happens.
Now your parents are they from Cuba, or one from Cuba and one from Mexico?
Yes. So my abuelitos on both sides came. So my dad's side, he was born here. My dad is Cubano, and then my mom is Mexican.
Oh,
so
okay.
her mom came over here, but both were born actually in California. They met in California.
So you're a second generation.
Yes,
okay.
I'm second generation. And something cool, interesting about the Cespedes family. My name is Brianna Cespedes, and we're related to Carlos Manuel de Cespedes, which he actually is the father of the country of Cuba, who started the revolution against Spain, the 10 Years' War in 1868. So I have that revolutionary blood inside of me, and definitely stand for, like, hey, we want freedom. Come on, let's fight for it.
So what part of California did you grow up in?
Santa Clarita. We moved around a little bit, but Santa Clarita is what I call home. I still live there now, by Agua Dulce, kind of that area. Out in the mountains. I used to have a horse growing up.
Off Highway 14, up in that.
Yep, exactly. Sierra Highway. If you know the Halfway House Cafe, in the movie, the Top Gun movie, I screamed when I saw it in the theater. I was like, oh, hey, that's right across the street from my house. I was so excited.
So
that was a very popular place on Sundays.
Yes. Yeah,
so you saw the Top Gun movie. It was right by your house. So you end up in the Air Force?
Well, that story. So at first I was like, okay, firefighting. You know, I grew up around all these women, so I wanted to be around more men, I guess. I don't know what it was. I wanted to be in public service.
Where are you in the pecking order?
I'm the middle one.
You're the middle one.
Yes.
Okay. So
you
right
had to
in the
fight.
middle. I'm the weird one, right? The black sheep, apparently the middle children of that. So I grew up I loved the outdoors. I was, I was that kind of girl. And public service was something I knew I wanted to partake in. I was really obsessed with the Constitution. And I said, well, why not join an organization that actually their job is to defend the Constitution? And that's the military. So I looked into all the different branches, and at first I was like, come on, Dad, I want to go all the way. Let me go hoorah with the Marines.
He said, no way.
He was like, that's not going to happen at all. So I settled, but the Air Force was a good option because I took a good trade, honestly. So I ended up being a broadcast journalist. I was on the air radio station, so it's really cool to be back in this kind of office and environment. My name was DJ Cubanita. It was really cool. I loved my experience.
So you spent
was
all
awesome.
were you in 4 years or longer?
So it was supposed to be 6 years, and I ended up doing 5.
So you did 5 years, and you were always in broadcasting?
I was always in broadcasting, videography, and radio.
Oh, great. How cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. Honestly, I was the Good Morning Vietnam movie. I'm sure you guys, So that was my job.
Not too many people we know have done that job. It's nice to have one in here.
Yeah.
So you got to 5 years, then what happened besides COVID 2020?
Well, actually, if we just go to my third year in, that's when COVID came around, right? The first time. So the military.
Where were you stationed, in what area?
I was in New Jersey. That was my
Okay.
first base. And at first it was kind of like, all right, this is happening, but we're going to take it easy. They made us work from home, which was nice at first. But then that lasted for 5-6 months. And we wore masks, and it got worse and worse. I actually was deployed with the National Guard to go to the hospitals in New York. And
do what?
To document all of the COVID operations that we're doing and supporting over there, which was interesting because we were not supposed to be around people, and yet I was around tons of people in the hospitals during that time, definitely being exposed, which was interesting. And I never got COVID. I never got it until 2 years later. So everything started from then, the quarantines, and then it wasn't until I was given I had like a short-term deployment, but it's not really a deployment. It's a short tour in Korea. So it's a year long. And I got to go to Korea, which was supposed to be safer in regards to COVID because they had much stricter precautions, right? It was awful being in the military and being in Korea at the same time because the U.S., we were trying to maintain a certain relationship, right?
Right.
To where we were not the cause of any more infection. So I was quarantined over 2 years. Okay, this is the total, but over 140 days, not all at once, 2 weeks at a time, but in isolation. I'm saying in the barracks. I'm saying like they came 3 times a day to give me food. I could go outside in a little yard that was just posted off.
Might
you
as
had
well
to
have
be
been in
by
the brig.
yourself. Yes, exactly. I was watching the
that's
show.
the jail for those of you that don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, Orange is the New Black. I was like, dang, I think I would rather be in prison right now. At least you have some socialization with people. So the experience overall, I didn't think it was possible to go through that. But I was quarantined so much. And then once I asked for that religious exemption, that started a whole new process. I became the bad airman. There was punishments for being unvaccinated in side ways, a lot of threats.
Well, and they don't call it that. They would call it like disobeying a direct order.
Exactly.
And kind of like in World War II, the prison guards, that was their defense. Oh, I was just taking orders.
Exactly.
So that didn't work then, but they still think they kind of think it works now.
Well, yeah, and honestly, I was given LOR, so letter of reprimands, for disobeying a lawful order, right, from my commanders. And
the lawful order was you needed to be vaccinated?
Yes, that was the lawful order, which came down from Lloyd, right, Secretary of Def Lloyd.
Even though you tried for a religious exemption, they weren't accepting it.
Yes. So when I put in the religious exemption, what happened was it was a long process. So I'm talking over, this was, when I put in from the religious exemption, it was September 2021. And I didn't get a response. I got to go back in my memory, but it was March. I'm sorry, March 2022. So during that time, right, I'm being quarantined. I'm waiting to figure out, hey, am I getting kicked out of the military? Am I allowed to go outside? Like, what is going to happen?
You were
to my
quarantined
life?
more than 2 weeks at that point. So you were in solitary confinement by yourself, unvaccinated, with a religious exemption, not allowed to talk to anybody or do anything?
So it could only be 2 weeks at a time.
Okay.
But it was interesting how many times I was in quarantine 2 weeks at a time, back to back. There was a point where 2 months I had spent almost, there may be a couple days in between, but back-to-back quarantines. So first there was like when I was in Belgium, right, in NATO, they had 2 months there where I was actually in quarantine with those 2 week time frames. It was crazy. So basically I had gotten COVID for the first time, right? So I was in for 2 weeks. And then I went back, it was 2 days, and then somebody in the office got sick, so then I had to go back into quarantine. And then I was about to leave to go back to the United States, so I had to quarantine again for 2 weeks. And then coming back from the United States, I had to quarantine again, right? So it was just
It all went a seamless transition, but in other words, it was 2 weeks on a 2 weeks and a 2 weeks and a 2 weeks.
Yes. So it was interesting, though, specifically as an unvaccinated person, because people who were vaccinated still had to quarantine as well. Mm-hmm. They had less time. Sometimes it would be 7 days for them. But for me as an unvaccinated person in my office, I was required to wear a mask. I was the only one. And this was after the religious exemption was denied. So I'm going a little out of order here, sorry.
That's okay.
But basically, religious exemption, I waited for a long time while I was in Korea to find out, am I going to be denied or not? I ended up leaving from Korea to Belgium, not knowing if it was denied. They denied it in Belgium. So I'm quarantined there. I'm stuck at that office. And then I know, hey, you're going to get removed from the U.S. military. And at that point, I had already been waiting for so long. I find out once I get to my new station, thinking I'm going to have 2 years at this station. And
where was that?
This was in Belgium.
Okay.
In NATO.
So you think you're staying in Belgium for 2 years?
Yes.
You're there how long, and then they move you out?
So I was in Belgium, let's see, from... When did I get there? November 2022, and then I got out July 2020... No, I'm sorry. November 2021, and then I got out July 2022.
Okay, so you were there like 8 months.
Yes.
Okay, and then from there they brought you back to the U.S. and said, we're kicking you out. You're not vaccinated, and we're not honoring your religious exemption.
I was kicked out in Belgium. Yeah.
So they did. So how did they kick you out of the military in a foreign country?
Well, they kick you out, and then they'll send you home, right?
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, they took care of that flight, right? But just the process in general, what I'm trying to get across is just this. I think that people know we were kicked out for not getting vaccinated. People know that, hey, military members, this actually did happen. All right, that seems bad. They didn't get honorable discharges. I got a general discharge. I do not have an honorable.
Okay, so let our public know what the difference is, because we have no idea.
Okay, so honorable is the normal one. If you do your service, you don't commit any severe crimes,
it's honorable.
Yes, honorable.
General is you disobeyed orders, we're throwing you out, but they weren't anything serious.
General is admin, technically. So it can be like a medical discharge. It can be one of my friends, she knew a guy that had sexually assaulted someone, and he got a general. So it can also be pretty bad as well.
Okay.
And then you have dishonorable, which is the worst, right? You don't want
you
dishonorable.
Murdered somebody. We're dishonorably discharged.
Yeah, it's bad.
So under the general, do you still maintain your GI Bill benefits?
I was told I did not while I was in, so I was very afraid. However, I do get them because I had general under honorable.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm really thankful. I have to give a shout out, if it happens, like the congressmen that were working really hard to support the bill to make sure that President Biden could not give us a dishonorable. Because at first, that's what he wanted to give us. The dishonorable discharge.
A cranky old man. If you don't follow what they say, they're very vindictive.
Yeah, so honestly, I'm so thankful because that would have ruined my life. I would be considered a criminal right now if I have a dishonorable discharge. You can't get hired. You can't, so many places you can't get through civilian life if you have that dishonorable discharge. So I'm really thankful. And honestly, I just want to express, yes, we got kicked out. We got the general discharges. But the process to get kicked out, that was...
torture.
It was awful. Being in isolation like that for that amount of time, I was going crazy. I was fighting for everything just to talk to my commander, say, hey, is this... okay, what law allows this? What policy? Is there any way for me to get out of here? Any way?
Yeah, get the vaccination. That's what they wanted. But that's what they wanted. And I think that's what people don't realize is that that's another form of torture. We're going to make you so miserable that you're just going to give in. And I'm sure a lot of people gave in.
My peers did.
Yeah, a lot of them gave in because they didn't want to deal with it.
No, I mean, honestly, the guys that I knew, they were like, look, I'm not willing to go through that. I'm not willing to. And for me, the reason why I didn't want the vaccine, I just... simply beyond the research and beyond all of that, it was this need to, hey, look, there's a lot of fear involved in this. There's a lot of control. There's a lot of subversion. Something is wrong here, and I am willing to take it on. I don't want to, but I can't take it on for the sake of what this means. If they are able to do this, how far can they actually go?
So now, what are you doing now? Where are you? So you're out of the military since July 2022.
Yep.
That's not even quite a year.
Yeah, no, honestly, I've talked to a few vets. They say the first year is the most confusing after you get out of the military, and it's true. I've been through quite a lot of change. My dad, actually, he passed away in November of last year.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Yeah, it's been really rough, but I'm thankful, honestly, to the Lord that I actually was able to get home, because I would have been stuck still in Belgium, probably under those regulations, if not for actually getting out. So the Lord made it work. Okay, that worked. However, it's still illegal what was happening, and that's the point I kind of wanted to bring across. I wrote a story, Involuntary Veterans. I wrote it. It's my story, and I'm hoping actually to get other veterans that were also kicked out for the same reason, like, hey, tell us what happened to you guys. Like, what were they doing?
Well, and that's what with this show, a lot of what we do, we did that with firefighters, police officers, county workers, nurses, is that the more people hear what has taken place, the more they realize, that they're not as free as they think they are. And like we talked in the very beginning, and especially here in California, I mean, you have Governor Newsom talking about, how when Trump was president, they want to restrict doctors, they want to do all this different stuff. Yet California has been, restrictive beyond anyone's belief, to the point where if a doctor starts speaking out against the vaccines or the mandates, they could lose their license. I mean, you have the schools, you have the teachers being fired, you have all these different students not being able to go through graduation or participate in sports, and so and now, in retrospect, we're seeing so many adverse medical reactions to the vaccines.
It's amazing to me how many times you look on the news or Instagram or Facebook, or you talk to somebody and you hear of another athlete that was 16 to 32 that have died in the middle of their sport, either on the field while they're engaged in an actual game or while they're under practice. It's incredible to me. And I've talked to some people and they go, well, yeah, that's 15%. I go, yeah, but how would you like to be that 15% or have the child that's the 15%? And that's the question that nobody's asking. You just lost your father and it's terrible. I've lost both my parents. I understand your loss and it's hard. It's very, very difficult. David lost his mom. We were all fortunate to get to know her. She was quite the firecracker, that one. And, we know what that loss is. But I can't imagine someone having the attitude of, well, but, it's only 15%. Well, that only 15% mattered to somebody.
Yeah, 15% of a large number. So all of a sudden you're talking about
tens of thousands of people, but they matter to somebody.
And it's interesting that because they were using that same argument, but the other way they were saying, well, what about that one person, that one older person that's going to die from COVID? You have to care about them. The much smaller number. What was it? 0.99. I don't know the percentage of COVID deaths to COVID.
And the proof is in the fact that they were manipulating the numbers. Yeah. You could be in a car accident and they take you and you die at the hospital, but if you tested positive, well, it's COVID related.
Yeah,
there was so much dishonesty and so much manipulation, and all of it was really done by those in power, the Democrats, and let's place the responsibility where it belongs. I mean, you look at California with the governor, the lieutenant governor who is now running for governor to replace Gavin Newsom, and attorney general, treasurer, controller, superintendent of public instruction. I think that covers all of the state offices. They're all Democrats. You have 80 state assembly members, supermajority in the assembly, and then also a supermajority in the Senate. They pass all of these bills coming out of Sacramento, jeopardizing parental rights, jeopardizing the welfare of kids, giving 12-year-olds the ability to take away the parents' ability to get into their medical records.
The ability for them now, they're trying to pass that law. Jennifer knows which one it is. It's either SB 665, where their kids can put themselves into shelter without parents' knowledge. I'm like, come on, people, really?
Well, and so all of those are down party lines. All of the challenges that we're experiencing are because of Democrat leadership. And why are the Democrat leadership in office? Because Democrats vote for them.
Well, and now we're up for our first half hour. That was a quick half hour. We'll be right back. You're with David and Jeffy on the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club on AM 870, The Answer.
All right, and we're back. And there's our music as we're coming back. And now we have in studio a returning guest who was such, unfortunately the topic, but it was such a hit with the listeners and also the people here in the show, because the issue is just so important. Karen, welcome back. Karen Kenny.
Hello. Happy pre-Mother's Day.
Yeah,
Yes.
Happy pre-Mother's Day.
Are you a mom?
No, but I feel like it.
Okay, well, happy Feel Like It Mother's Day.
Okay. Yes, and May is National, National Mental
Health Month?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is, I think, why I got the call to come in.
Yeah, well, I mean,
don't worry, I'm on meds. No, I'm joking.
That's
I'm joking.
right. Well, was that commercial? He's just like you. He's on meds too.
Oh, yeah.
No, don't you remember the commercials? Wait a minute. This is my favorite thing to ever say to people. So probably you don't know it, but maybe you do, and I know you probably do too, David. So it used to be a commercial that said, "Are you feeling down? Are you feeling unwanted? Don't worry. Call Charter Hospital. We can help." Do you remember those commercials?
Oh, yes. That was back when insurance would pay for a month of care.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Now
Don't
you're
worry.
lucky to get
Call
a week.
Charter Hospital.
Yeah.
They can help.
Well, now that COVID is over, everything's back to normal.
And I'm tall and thin. All right, okay.
What's the mental state of the state?
Well, to tell you the truth, I did a little show prep, as they say, and I checked in at what I think is the respectable clearinghouse for mental health statistics. It's called the NAIM. It's the National Alliance of Mental Illness. And the stats are going up through the roof, not even just with COVID and pre-COVID.
What kind of stats?
The stats like 25% of adults have mental illness. That's 57.8 million people. And serious mental health, that means major anxiety, depression, bipolar incidents. Those are up to 14 million people.
How
in
do
this
people all of a
country.
sudden develop bipolar? I thought it was something that they developed at a teenage year that is genetic or something.
Well, it's not all of a sudden. It's when they actually go to get treatment. Bipolar often can be just ignored or mistreated, not really treated. People say, "Oh, they just have depression."
Well, no, the reason I'm asking is because I always thought that it was something that you were actually something born with, that's triggered or comes out at some point. So why is that number up if it's something that people are born with? Or is it just now being more diagnosed?
I think
or is it being wrongly diagnosed?
I think it's the level of stressors that are. Most people can get through some stress if they have social supports, a family, maybe they're on treatment, medication. But
Or
then
they just have a jacuzzi like me.
Oh, that's the secret. Now you tell me. After 33 years of treating people, I could just say, get a jacuzzi, and we'll be
Just so you
fine.
relax.
Get a jacuzzi and a companion animal.
Hey, that's right. I got a dog and a horse. There you go.
And I was listening to Brianna, the prior guest, because I treat military. I'm a provider with Military One Source. And that level of mental health people coming to treatment for marital issues, for job dissatisfaction, deployment issues, coming back, going, etc. Those are spiking. I've been doing this for about 5 years, and they're spiking now. So when you said what happened to you, I thought, that's happened to a number of other people. Thank God you're speaking here today on that, because people just think the military is in a uniform and invisible because they don't see soldiers.
No,
Well, they're seeing them at the border right now.
Okay.
I mean, that's about the only
Pardon
time
me, I
see
got
them.
whiplash when you said that. Okay. Well, I hope so, because they shouldn't be coming. But I wanted to address a couple things, because people think mental illness is one of those things that just applies to families. Maybe there's some people in certain areas, like if you go to on the Orange Line today, you'll see 800 people live. The Orange Line is their home.
Right.
And they get off at night. And so you don't see it, except now you do. And it used to be one of those family secrets. But the thing that people now see is some of the statistics on suicide. And I had to bring it up because I know this is another one of happiness with Karen, like last time in January when I was here. I thought people were going to open a vein. But in any case, with suicide, the LGBTQIA kind of ingredients with transgender 9 times more than general population. The LGBTQ general, just not trans, is 4 times. Kids between the ages of 10 and 14, it's the number 2 cause of death. Suicide is. And
that's between 10 and 14?
10 and 14. That's extraordinarily young.
Well, okay. So, but what is why is it? I mean, I remember the suicide rate usually being more in high school age, the 16 to 18 to 21. Why has the age gotten so low?
Well,
why, you know what I mean? Why are we seeing 10-year-olds?
Well, if you listen to, we've killed the planet, and we're going to all, die with, a solar flare coming up. There's no future. You're not going to have, there's so many different pressures.
And if you're a certain color, you're a victim. And if you're another certain color, you're a predator. Mm-hmm. And by the way, you're not going to live very long because of the, like you said, the planet's going to die. And oh my gosh, take a deep breath because, there's some toxins or poisons in your air. But there's something else, and it's the internet. We didn't have that before. Mm-hmm. Now there are whole kind of waves of, like TikTok, for example, where they put out these things to do and people to try, and then you have teen suicides because one woman died trying to drink 20 gallons of water because it was a TikTok challenge.
Right.
And another one is cutting. That's another TikTok challenge, and that's back. And so it's like we didn't have the internet before was not like it is now. Now you have portability on your phone, where before you had to sit at a desk and look at a screen. So I think the overall stressors, I think the reaction to the pandemic and the isolation where Dad was in one room, Mom was in another room, the kids were in other rooms, and they missed those wonderful little side developmental kind of, gee, we went to dances with our friends, or we had people over for a slumber party. You didn't do that, especially after March 20th to about March 21. You just didn't. And we're, mark my words, we are going to see 5 to 10 years of developmental lag, social lags because of this, because of the kids just missing those wonderful markers of socializing and really getting developmental tasks and how to, like I've said before, people don't know how to solve problems. They don't know how to share information that is personal. They know how to get data.
Okay. Would you get a little bit closer to the mic, Karen?
Okay. Sorry. You have my late voice. And also today I went and, happy Saturday, I went and saw the extraordinary Auschwitz, curator at the Reagan Museum.
I was going to say, isn't that the Reagan Museum? I wanted to go see that.
It's really extraordinarily worth seeing. It's very personal. They got a lot of personal information there. So hopefully you can hear me now. I'm a little bit... better in the water.
One of the listeners just texted me and said, "Hey, would you ask Karen to speak a little louder?"
Okay, thank you. I think I was using my therapy voice, and also
you were talking us off the ledge.
Okay, come back towards the light. Okay, and something else. I used to work with the pre-delinquent kids, and 60% of the kids that are in juvenile hall, etc., 60%, especially of the females in there, have diagnosable mental illnesses. And it's just extraordinary that people think, well, mental illness is only what we see maybe on the TV or maybe in a homeless encampment. But it's buried in different social structures. Schools. Remember for a while there we were seeing college kids jumping up. Cal State Northridge had some several years ago, jumping off of the tall building at Sierra. So that said, I'm going to suggest one thing. If you want to do something for your mental health, stay in contact with 1 to 3 people that you're really intimate with. People that you can call at 2 a.m. and say, I'm having a rough time. For some people, it's their sponsor. And for other people, it's grandma. And for some people, it's a very, very dear friend. And if they can't, I tell people, write it down and then read it out loud and then go to sleep. Why? Because there's multiple ways. If you're saying, I really feel awful, da-da-da-da-da, you're texting, you're putting it to paper, and you're reading it, and then you're allowing your mind to kind of shut it down and process. And the next day, believe it or not,
I think the last time you were here, Yen, you also talked about shutting off the social media before you go to bed.
Absolutely. Check those computers at 8 p.m.
8 a.m.? Oh, perfect.
No, 8 p.m. because we need, with sleep hygiene, we really do need to kind of reduce the stimuli before bed because you need to power down to really get some sleep. And so people are looking at these, as I've said before, these little mini suns in the phones. That blue light is like that. And it triggers your brain to say, oh, I'm looking at sunlight. And so what happens, you go to sleep, but your brain is just processing like man.
Well, and one of the tragedies, I mean, Brianna was talking about someone who took their life. Was that today?
Yeah. Well, tried to last night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, and we have friends that have taken their life, and it's from the outside, and I think that's what people look when they look at the social media. People are taking pictures of where they are, like they're doing all these beautiful things, and other people are looking at that and saying, "Well, my life is really boring and meaningless." But some people that one of our friends, Larry Greenfield, Larry was an incredible individual that I've known forever. Ended up taking his own life, and it was like, what a shock. I mean, to get in so much internal, I don't know if it's internal pain or what is it, that is a viable option.
Well, I'll tell you, it's because people never ask, how are you doing, and are actually interested in knowing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why. So some of the happiest people you go, oh my God, I had no idea this person would take their life.
Robin Williams, you look at it, who was that, Seymour... John, was it
Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Philip Seymour. You look at people that have like, okay, we've reached. You have everything, and yet it doesn't matter anymore. And you're willing to make now. One would say or could say that, okay, well, the fact that they did that act meant that that was not a conscious decision. I mean, I don't know, but that you see people on the outside. And it looks like they have it all together. And I should say they don't know how to let you know that they don't know how to ask for help.
And honestly, I've seen within like my own generation, talking to my friends and stuff, the way that, so I told my friend, like, oh yeah, I go hiking for hours and I don't have a phone, I don't have service, nothing, right? And he asked me, he genuinely said, how can you be in silence for that long? Honestly, and
that's because you were in quarantine for 44 days, 140 days.
Yeah, but honestly, that helped like me realize, that I think my generation and below especially, there's an addiction to receive entertainment, almost so much that we're afraid to face our own thoughts, and that's a problem. If you can't be in silence and face yourself, then you're just continuing on and adrenaline.
It's funny. As a manicurist, I have a lot of young clients, and I've had young clients on and off for 45 years. And one of the first things I tell all my young clients is, before you get married, before you start your adult life, live alone for 1 year. And the reason being is because living alone for 1 year without a roommate, without parents, you get to know who you are. And you get to learn what to do when you have no one to call or someone to hang out with. And you learn how to have hobbies and to have interests and how to do different things. And I think that's something this generation doesn't have. This generation doesn't have hobbies. They don't know how to be by themselves. They don't know, when we grew up as kids, we went out and played and we learned to do different things. And I think that the generation, your generation, the generation behind it, you really haven't learned how to be able to do and be on your own. Wouldn't you? I mean, what's your thought on that?
I think there's a great deal of truth to what you say. However, I think there's something else. We are operating not just like we're talking right now, I see you, I hear you, I can actually reach over and touch you. We are connecting with people through things, through electronics, through phones. Most of our actual connection isn't I walk over and see you.
Right.
It's I text you and you've got about 4 seconds to respond, or I feel rejected.
Yeah.
And so what's happened is there's a very low tolerance for any kind of delayed gratification. That's one of the things that we are going to be seeing a lot of, is people that have no ability to handle their frustration and a very low ability to handle.
That's why everybody gets a trophy.
Don't get me started on that. Oh my gosh.
Speaking of trophies, and here and actually this is like deja vu, because both of you were in studio together last time, because we've just been joined by Jennifer. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hello. Good to see everybody tonight.
Your video's going viral, Missy.
I'm glad to hear it, as well it should. I'm so glad we're talking about the mental health of youth. It's so important, and I want to say that the youth of today, because of the pandemic, they've really, really been hit so hard by the adults' handling of the pandemic and the adults' choices that they've made with regard to COVID protocols and the way they have responded to this supposed crisis. And truly, the adults are to blame for harming the kids in their care. And some of those adults who have harmed children, in my opinion, are the administrators at Granada Hills Charter. And everybody knows, I've talked about them a million times, that is the school that to this day continues to have a COVID vaccination mandate for its students. And I have big news tonight. For the first time in 3 years, in fact greater than 3 years, the governing board of Granada Hills Charter will be meeting in person to hold its first board meeting in person at which the public can actually attend.
Do you have to be vaccinated to attend?
You do not, and I'm going to tell you
okay.
why. That's part of the issue here. I'll tell you this. It's Monday. It's this coming Monday, May 15th. I want to invite everyone in the greater Los Angeles basin to join me at that meeting. It's going to be on campus at Granada Hills Charter, and the address is 10535 Zelza Avenue in Granada Hills 91344. That's the high school campus. The meeting is set for 4 in the afternoon, and the public is welcome because, as the administrators say very clearly on the website, it's important that the public observe the affairs of the school being conducted transparently. Monday, May 15th at 4 p.m. And I think it's really important for the public to join and see the business of the school being conducted, because guess what's not on the agenda? What's not on the agenda is the removal of the vaccination mandates that still remain on that campus for staff, for students, and even for various contractors who need to come on campus to get something done. And for those people, they rely on the LA Unified's employee mandate. But here's the thing. They're inviting the public to come on because Granada Hills Charter recently changed one of its policies that they call the COVID-19 Safety Plan. And in that plan, they will now allow school-approved visitors, and I'm reading here, regardless of their COVID-19 vaccination status, to attend GHC indoor events and activities such as performances, athletic events, meetings with staff, etc. And this change applies to Granada students and non-Granada students. And then it goes on to say there's no change to the school's requirement that staff, workers, volunteers, and students be vaccinated against COVID-19. So what does this mean? This means that visitors to the campus of any age and any vaccination status have more personal liberty rights than enrolled students at Granada Hills Charter. And this is what it looks like, because just last week I was up in front of the TK8 campus while it held its open house. And what we saw were floods of people arriving on campus to go mix and mingle inside with people of all ages and all unknown vaccination status in the classrooms. including little kids, 12-year-old kids, pretty much anybody who wanted to come on campus was welcome to come on campus and be indoors for however long those hours that open house went on. But by the next morning, the 12-year-old students at that TK8 campus would be excluded. They could have come to the open house the night before, but they couldn't come to school the next day.
For an education.
This is the arbitrary and capricious nature of the continued vaccination policies, certainly for the students on the campus. You tell me why these students were allowed to, for example, go to prom, which was great. What a victory that was to have Granada finally allow the students to go to prom at an indoor function, and yet they claim students can't then, the next Monday, come to class and be indoors together with classmates. So the policy remains that children 12 and older, that's at the middle school and all the way up through the high school, still have to submit to now the brand new bivalent COVID vaccine, which has never been tested on humans. So we need to attend this board meeting. We need to show the support for our community, that the community no longer thinks this is necessary. Because I tell you, Granada Hills Charter repeatedly says in media, the very few media responses it gives, is that our community asked us for this. Our community wants this for the students here on this campus. And we, the community, need to rise up and say, no, we don't. We're tired of having you victimize children to give them shots they don't need, to protect people that they aren't protecting, to make you adults feel safe. It's high time this ends right now. So that was big news that we're back on campus, and I invite everyone to attend this Granada Hills Charter Board meeting. It's going to be very interesting. And by the way, people may sign up to make public comment at this meeting. They allow very few slots for public comment, but there are procedures that you can look up on the Granada Hills Charter website, which is at ghctk12.com. And you look under Board of Directors, and there are meeting instructions on how you can seek to make public comment. Good luck. It's going to be very surprising to see who actually is allowed to make public comment. But I'll tell you this. Those instructions on the website say this. They say that people making public comment may sign up at least 2 hours prior to the start of the meeting. And by calling David Bensinger, he's the chief of staff I will put his address on the website, our website, and identifying the agenda item or subject matter of the public comment. This is not accurate. When you make public comment, you are not required to identify the topic of your comment. You're not identified to require the subject matter. This does not comport with the Brown Act requirements, and yet that's what they're saying on their website. So I invite you to call the school at 818-360-2361 to ask to make public comment if you wish, or to email David Bensinger at dbensinger, BENSINGER, at ghctk12.com. All of this is publicly available on the website for anyone to find out.
Which we just posted on our live feed.
Fantastic. I can't wait to see you there. I look forward to the public support at that board meeting and encouraging them to end these stupid and cruel mandates as soon as possible.
Well, Jennifer, we just had Brianna on, and we'll have her back. But she said that there's about 50,000 military personnel, be it reserve, active, or National Guard, that have been forced out of the military because their exemptions would not be honored. And
yes, and that is one of the greatest tragedies for this nation. When we also look on a local level for our LAPD and our firefighters who've been terminated, when we see our troops, our military being terminated over this needless shot, intentionally decimating our forces, it's shocking and it's appalling that this was ever allowed to stand. Now, we know the military's always been subject to vaccination requirements, but this one, under emergency use authorization, absolutely intolerable. that this has happened to our military.
Now, what is this? We only have like about a minute left, but what is this new variant that's come out?
Well, my word, we're already way past Omicron BA4 and 5. Who knows what the new one is? Has anyone named one?
It has to have a catchy name because
it's probably the Arcturus. Is it
Okay.
the Arcturus? Yeah, they're coming up with like hurricane names now. Pretty soon.
I mean, because you had monkeypox, and that just kind of fell
that
flat.
fizzled. Yeah, that didn't. That was moneypox.
NHR1, AHR1 something.
And they've already said, listen, the FDA, the CDC, they have said this is going to be like the flu. They're going to be looking at the circulating variants every year. They're probably going to try to come up with continued vaccination products, which will always be behind, because the bivalent I mentioned, that bivalent is the one that codes for the expression of spike proteins that are modeled on Wuhan, the original Wuhan virus, and Omicron BA4, BA5. Both of those are extinct. They are extinct. You are using an old, expired shot to supposedly address the new variant. It makes no sense.
Well, it does. They're trying to make money for the stockholders, the shareholders.
They're trying to push through that inventory.
Well, Jennifer, the first time I met Robert Kennedy, who is now officially running for president, what he said was that, he's not anti-vax, but he's for safe vaccines and ones that are needed and tested and proven. And so, we're going to keep up the fight. And we're going to come back,
right.
and we'll come back with Karen and also with Brianna. So, Jennifer, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
Very soon. Hopefully Monday.
Yes. We'll be right back on AM 870, The Answer. And we're back. We're really back. We're back in studio, and we're going to go to our very special call-in guest, our dear friend, Paula. Let me go ahead and click on the...
Hi, Paula.
Hey, how are you guys this evening?
Oh, my gosh. Well, first of all, happy Mother's Day before the day. You are a rock star because you're a mother for the foster care people. For all those foster care kids, you are a very special mom. So happy special Mother's Day to you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. We had a great event last night. We had a foster parent, adoptive parent support group meeting, which there's not enough of them around. It's just a chance for foster parents to get together and really just talk with one another about their unique experiences and unique challenges. And then Department of Children and Family Services had some resource people there to help them if they had questions. And it was just a group of about 40 people. But, man, it was just amazing to see all of these people who really were deep skin in the game,
No, absolutely. And, it's really amazing, because we looked at the foster care system, and now we look at the juvenile justice system and all of the changes that are going on there. Just so much, and yet, we talk about it a lot, but these are things that the families are going through, on an hourly basis.
You know what, Paula, you sent me an article, and unfortunately, I've been so busy working, I glanced through it, I didn't get a chance to read all of it. So when I saw that, I go, we got to have you on. Would you be willing to come on and talk about it? And you said yes, and the article had just dropped. Could you just, we have some time, so just drop what the article was about and why it was so important to you.
Well, the article is about the partnerships between faith-based organizations and government organizations, and if it can work and how it can work. And there's people all over the spectrum. There's people within the Department of Children and Family Services and within the government that think we should absolutely not be partnering with faith-based organizations ever for any reason, just because they believe philosophically. Well, they feel like we're indoctrinating children, and they feel like we're just philosophically so far apart that should just never happen. And then there are people on the faith side that feel like we should absolutely never engage with anything government because there's just risks there. And there are risks there for sure, but I think that the benefits can really far outweigh the risks. In the Bible, God sent Joseph to be a wise and trusted voice in a government that was in crisis, and a government that didn't even know it was in crisis, but knew something was afoot. And he sent them not necessarily to be a voice of faith, but to be a trusted voice because he believed in God and he believed in the true God. And what he did was very political. But we also, as a church, need to be trusted voices within the government sector and not ignore that mission field. I think it's a lie of Satan. It is a tough mission field full of idolatry and full of just misinformation and self-motivated people. But we need to stand along the side of the good people that are truly in government, really trying to make a difference. And because DCFS has been in such turmoil for such a long time, they really are looking to the church to help them be the answer. In 2022, DCFS was negative $350 million. They are so underfunded that they were in the rear $350 million. So we as a government, as a people, are not funding these really critical services that need to happen for these children.
But what's super interesting to me, though, Paula, having run for LA County Supervisor, I know what their budget was in 2022. They had a $48.9 billion budget. I want to know, since the five queens sitting on that board, they are the responsible adults for all 66,000 kids in foster care. You want to tell me why they couldn't write a $350 million? How about a $500 million check?
Well,
$500 million. Give me a break.
100%. And not only that, but we have a governor that believes that he needs to care for children outside of his own state and for people outside of his own state, paying for them to come in and fund abortions, hospital, transportation. Trans.
Let's talk about how he wants to change. He wants to allow those parents to bring their kids in here, and we're all supposed to pay for them to have their bodies changed into something else and mutilated. No, I can't even tell you.
The two things that truthfully are none of his business as far as the government, because his children, the ones that he is responsible for, are languishing. So set aside any theological issues we have. The fact that he's willing to spend money on children and people that are other states' responsibility while his children are languishing is really, really something that is reprehensible.
Well, and here's the thing, Paula, and this is what I keep telling people, is that there's 450,000 kids in foster care nationwide. LA County has an average of 66,000 foster kids. LA County. It's a county out of the entire United States. And I look at people and I go, do you understand that number? 66,000 kids out of 450,000 kids nationwide. And yet we have, our county has one of the largest budgets of more than over 25 small countries. And yet we can't fund we can.
We just,
we can. We can afford to fund it, but I'm saying the government can't. They say they can't afford to fund it. They can't fund it. It just gets me so hot, and that's why I always bring you on, because I get so upset about this.
And the challenge is that it is not. It's going to take the church, to be honest, and a miracle to have there be any change. The caseload is supposed to be 12 to 15 children per caseworker. Our people are working at somewhere between 35 and 42 kids per person.
And we do have a miracle coming, because Melania Trump is still working with the foster care system very quietly, and she is involved in it, and I'm so grateful. I would love to find out how we can get her on the show and talk about the programs that she's working with. Unfortunately, her programs are nationwide. They don't help the state of California. They don't help particularly the county of Los Angeles. I don't know how we fix that besides inviting the churches to come in and take responsibility, like you've said before on our show, that it's the Lord's wish that we take care of the orphan children.
Yeah, and that the church really does, and not I say the church, but really people of faith need to really pray that God will open their eyes and reveal to them the desperate need that we have for children in this specific hour. And it is so critical, but it is not, we've talked about this before, that children don't have a voice. None of these kids have a voice. And it's not an issue that will be won during elections. So you're not going to, it doesn't happen between one term and the next term. So it is not something that gets a lot of attention because it is such a deep pit that they have got these kids in that it's going to take decades before we see any change in the 75% of the people who are incarcerated coming out of foster care, half of our homeless. The stats are that by age 19, 75% of all girls in foster care will have had a child of their own. And it, from a fiscal standpoint, for the government, it totally makes sense if they can fix it and start doing right by these kids when they're young, because they're paying for them for the rest of their lives.
Well, and unfortunately, they're, like I said, they're paying for it, but somebody is receiving that payment. And so you have so many other nonprofits that are in the homeless industrial complex, that are in all of these different quality of life challenges where there's so much money being made that there's no incentive to solve the problem. And in the end, these kids are, they're the victims, even though many people look at them as, well, look at how they're acting out. I was on a board for 5 years, and we had 3 homes with boys ages 8 through 18 that we received from the county. And, they all had problems because they had been in the system, some of them, since they were infants. And here they were being mainstreamed at public schools, and, there were all of these different challenges. I mean, if they couldn't even trust their parents, it's kind of hard to trust, people in authority.
Yeah. There is something that's kind of exciting. There is some traction in some high-end corporate companies to start including foster care as a benefit. So if you are working for a big company like Disney or Sony or any one of these major companies, a benefit you would have if you were a foster parent. So there would be some scholarships that would be available for you and your children. There would be some resources available, because one of the things is, even as a foster parent, there still is so many things that your child needs that they just don't have access to. Sports, arts, all the things that help feed their soul and actually help mend some of the trauma that they've experienced. Because I'm telling you, we would be acting out too if we had gone through what these children have gone through.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Paula, one of our listeners just texted me that she wanted to know how can she become a foster parent. Who should she contact?
I can give her, Olive Crest is in this area. They are one of our major partners. There are numbers. She can also contact me at paula@shepherdchurch.com, and we can have that conversation for sure. And I can help guide her depending on what she wants. There is institutions, these nonprofit, one of them we partner with is called Saving Innocence. They only place children who have been sexually exploited. But the training, the intervention, the care that the parents need is so much greater, because these kids can't go into any home. They can't go into a home that already has children. They can't go. There's just a whole bunch of things because of the amount of trauma that these kids have endured. So depending on the level of what she wants, but Olive Crest is a great place to start. They're a faith-based organization. They're one of our partners. They were there last night at this collaborative, and they will help with that process. Now, these organizations are something that's called an FFA. They're an organization, and FFAs are licensed by the Department of Children and Family Services to place children from DCFS. So these aren't private adoption agencies. Something I didn't understand until I really sort of delved into this is you're getting kids from the foster system. But the challenge is that the foster system, when a child comes into their organization, you sign up directly with them. sometimes you wait a lot longer than you would wait with one of these organizations, because it is much easier for them to call one organization and have them do the heavy lifting, especially with their caseloads, of finding the right family for this child, than it is for them to go to the Rolodex, old word, and call parents after parents after parents after parents to see if they still have availability, if they're still open to taking a family. So you really do have a better way of getting in there. And also, depending on the age of the child, there's some different organizations that do have a lot of babies, tend to get more babies than others, just because of their relationship with DCFS and they know sort of their specialties in their fields. But Olive Crest has been a great partner for us, just because they not only do foster and adopt, they have something called Safe Families, which is, I think we've talked about before. It's when a person comes to them and let's say they're addicted or they're just having mental health issues. And so to keep them from going into the foster system, they will take the child and put them in a approved safe family, and then they will work with the parents to get the help they need, with the goal that these two will be united after they get past this crisis. And because once you're in the system is broke. So it's just not the best alternative for getting people help they need.
Mm-hmm. So, and what is your email again, Paula?
It's Paula@shepherdchurch.com.
Paula@shepherdchurch.com.
And you know what? Anyone who's interested in, if you can't foster a child or it's more than you're able to do, please get in touch with Paula and find out how you can volunteer, how you can help. Maybe you can be a big sister, big brother. Maybe you can be a participant in volunteering, not necessarily with a child, but with organizations that need help finding clothing, furniture, or helping children. There's a lot of families that are literally on the edge of losing their children to the foster care system because they don't have the right bedding. They don't have a refrigerator. There's something they don't need, and they are on a deadline to get it. So you can volunteer by having something or something they made. Maybe your kids have gone off to college and you have children's furniture that you don't need any longer. That furniture can be donated to some of these organizations
100%.
and be used. So please, 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 if you have anything of that or any ideas, even if you just want to chat with Paula and find out how you can volunteer or something you can do, please, Paula@Shepherd, SHEPHARD church.com. Please send her an email, get in touch with her. Paula, it might take you a day or two to get back to them, but please have faith. She will get back to you. But they definitely need more than just a foster home. I mean, they need that too, but if fostering is not something you can do, there's so much more you still are able to do.
There's so much more you can get there. They tend to call them wraparound services. So it's everything from dropping off meals to providing resources through groups like Care Portal, James Storehouse. There's just some organizations that are doing some amazing, amazing things. And as well as you have to have a life scan and a background check to be able to even babysit these kids. But once you have that, you can do that. And then dropping off a meal once a week, once a month, it's such an enormous blessing for a family who is dealing with foster children and trying to help them get their schoolwork done. And then there's also tutoring that you can do. With after school, some of it can be done online, doesn't even have to be done in person, where you can just tutor these children and just help them with their homework. And I mean, every parent's different, but if I had to teach kids math and I had to tutor even my own kids with math, it would have been a very bad situation. So just being able to have that kind of support is huge. It really is huge.
Paula, thank you so much. And you do so much. And Shepherd Church does so much. I mean, not only with foster, but with the homeless and all of the different things that you guys do. And we really appreciate you, and we look forward to having you come back.
Thank you. Well, we're super blessed to do it, and honestly, it just takes all of us for Christians to stand up and say we're taking back our children. And,
Paula,
we're taking back our city.
The things that I learned when I ran for office, meeting you, I unfortunately came to the foster care understanding long at the end of my campaign. But I can tell you when I run for office again, it'll be my number one thing that I run on, because nobody was talking about it until I got the information from you. And then once I got it from you, I was able to share that with so many people. And finally, believe it or not, Lindsay Horvath made a post that she's actually interested in the foster care system. So let's hope maybe she's really serious about doing something, since she is one of the last board members elected.
All right. Thank you, Paula.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, and appreciate you guys having me on.
Okay.
Bye, Paula. Have a good evening. Happy Mother's Day.
So, Karen, Brianna, boy, see, there's so many different issues going on.
And this is the place to bring them, because people need to hear a dialogue. They need to really hear something that's being done. The trouble is, people think too big. They think, if I can't do this and this and this and this and this, then why bother doing anything? But what she was talking about, dropping off a meal, offering to babysit once you get qualified to be able to do that, doing what we call respite care is really important for families that are overloaded and who are willing to, say, take in particularly a line of population in the foster care system is adolescents that are often very hard to place and very hard to find respite care for.
Explain what respite care is for some people that don't know what that is.
Respite care is you need to go and go to the store. I'll come and sit with your child for a few hours to do that, giving you a break from the care. I'll come in and tutor. You guys fix dinner. You go do this. I'll come in and work with your kids and teach them English or writing. That kind of thing. That's what respite care is. It gives the primary caretaker a break.
Thank you. There's some people that are like, I don't know what that is.
Okay, thanks.
And honestly, it's a great opportunity to just be able to give back to your community, and also just to know, I think this is great to have all this dialogue, because you realize, hey, look at all these different areas. Where can I help? Where is the need? Oh, there's needs everywhere. Great. Where can I help? Where do I want to help?
What I think would be wonderful after, going back with how you were in military and how this has been a tough year, the first year is the most difficult. I think that if we could figure out a way to get some of our military that are coming out of the military to adjust, getting involved with some people that are involved in the foster care, because those kids are having an adjustment problem too. You have a common ground. I think if you could get more people to get involved and have those conversations, military people are amazing people. You guys signed up, you volunteered to defend our country, and that's something that's really amazing. And I think that's something that gives a child something to look up to and know that there's something that they have after they get out of foster care.
Well, Karen, a lot of people, they get to the point where they feel that their life has no purpose, and to be able to get involved in something like this or other endeavors actually gives people purpose.
You're absolutely right.
Jordan Peterson actually had a quote on that. He said, if you don't feel fulfilled in your life, it's probably because you don't have enough responsibility. It's interesting. But if you want to be more fulfilled, give to others, share with others. That's what I'm realizing right now, because it is a tumultuous time in my life, and I'm realizing, hey, there's so many people in need. I can just create a community that way. Get with a team, get with a church.
You should call Paula.
Actually, I'm thinking about tutoring the kids. Honestly, I could do that.
Paula could use your help. Trust me.
That'd be awesome.
Trust me. I went to their Christmas event, and it was remarkable to see what Shepherd Church does for the foster care kids. Only the kids and their foster parents or guardian are allowed to go to this event, and it is like Disneyland for these kids. It costs them nothing. There's food everywhere. There's presents everywhere. The things they do are remarkable, and she's very, very heavily involved in the foster care system. I really didn't know a lot about it until David said you need to talk to her. So that's how I found out about her. She's amazing. She's remarkable. If you want, I'll give you her phone number when we get off air. Yeah. I have it.
Okay. Now, Karen, we only have about 4 minutes left, or 3 minutes left.
Okay.
In closing, what are some of the things, we hear the numbers. They're not very encouraging. What can people do to kind of become more aware of some of these symptoms, or to see what a family member is going through, to be able to try and recognize any of this?
When I meet a client for the first time, I tell them the secret to mental health is peace of mind and quality of life. Most people, when they get overburdened, and the big four are anxiety, depression, like we were talking about, and manic depression and post-traumatic stress. Those are in the top four right now. Most people don't know how to recognize when people are sliding from just a sadness into a depression, and that goes with mood changes that are stationary, disconnecting from people. Gee, I used to go bowling and I never do that anymore, and so there's more of isolation, and the pandemic really kind of fogged that over for people, so that actually, in my caseload, there were a number of people who actually got worse before they finally came into treatment, because they just thought they were just dealing with stuff related to the isolation of the pandemic when they were sinking into really major depression. So one is to recognize some of the signs, and that's why I would recommend that people go to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, NAMI. To their website is extraordinary on how to recognize the difference between just being a little nervous and being a little worried, or being a little sad, versus major anxiety and major depression. You look for physical symptoms, loss of sleep, changes in eating habits. Do you wake up tired and go to bed tired, and you're tired all day, and you're having trouble concentrating? Those are some issues that people just kind of, well, I'll just take another drink and be fine, or I'll just run another mile and I'll be fine, and sometimes you're not fine. And the other thing is just what Brianna was saying. I draw up like a fraction, and on the top, or not a fraction, but a denominator and numerator, where you put mental health is meaning over what matters over what's missing. If you really know what matters, and we're talking values, and like you said, helping out, like Jordan Peterson says, being responsible, but being accountable.
Right.
Being accountable. Do I own what I do? Do I own what I say? Or do I just blame you because I got mad because of what, you looked at me funny? That kind of thing. So it really is, I believe, define what really matters. And it's not how many likes you have on TikTok, because those are strangers and some of them are bots. It's really interpersonal connection, and you can begin that before this program ends by giving someone a call that you've been meaning to call and you haven't.
Real quick, I got a text message from Paula about the email. I think we gave out the wrong email. So It is Paula, Paula, at Shepherd, SHEPHERD church.com. And we'll be right back on AM 870, The Answer.
And we're back, and the whole crew is back. It's like the band is back together, and we are about to enter the Don Monroe segment. Don Carlos segment.
How foreboding.
Missed the Carlos part. Yeah. Well,
Don Carlos.
Doesn't matter. But yes, we're all back together here. It's like, I don't know. It's like the band. Yeah, you're right.
The band is back together.
And things are flowing. We had some interesting things this week, and I wanted to kind of go into it. There's so many people that are kind of just still, on deaf ears of what's going on up in Sacramento. Legal Eagle, she was up there listening
on Wednesday.
On Wednesday, yeah, and she had a call to action she sent to everybody. It was actually remarkable to see it actually happen, where I could recognize many of the voices that came on and spoke in support of SCA 4, which was to repeal Prop 19?
Not all of Prop 19. So SCA 4, Senate Constitutional Amendment 4, was designed, and I say was, that's the spoiler. It was designed to repeal the worst part of Prop 19. And this is 2020's Prop 19. And for those of you who don't recall, this was the ballot measure, also a constitutional amendment, that secretly, covertly, and deceptively repealed an existing law in California, commonly known as Prop 58, which was enacted in a landslide by California voters in 1986. And what it did was it extended the protections of Prop 13 on a property tax to transfers of property between parents and children. So what we had existing in law was Prop 13 protected homeowners from reassessment of their property tax, right, until a change in ownership.
And the reason that happened, and I remember my grandfather telling me that, Prop 13 was California's saving grace. And the reason for it was, he said, I watched so many senior citizens get booted out of their homes because the state was addicted to tax monies that they could just reassess every year.
Single year. And senior citizens were losing their properties.
And the taxes were greater than, say, even renting some places. So these, basically, you end up with seniors in the streets is what you end up with getting rid of Prop 13.
And back at that time, that was 1978, and Howard Jarvis came in, massive grassroots campaign, and Prop 13 passed and saved this generation of homeowners.
It's interesting how they frame it, though, as if like, well, there's, it's the wealthy. They're the bad folks. And and you know what? They go down. They say renters associations support of removing it. Well, how would you be in support of removing it when all it's going to do is raise your rent?
Yeah. Well, and here's an example.
Right?
Here's an example that people don't take into consideration. My mother was 92. Her sister was 94. The two of them jointly owned a 3-unit apartment building that was protected under Prop 13 because it was like it's been there. I mean, one of the little houses on the property came from Olvera Street. That's how long it's been there. And their taxes were something maybe about $1,500 a year. When my aunt died, they raised the taxes to $12,000 a year. And that was only based on, and when I called the assessor's office, I go, what are you doing? This is between two sisters. And he goes, that doesn't matter. It has to be parent or child. So they took 50% of the property and elevated it to current market rate and gave a 93-year-old woman, very retired, a $12,000 a year property tax bill.
Very, very retired.
Yep. And that's $1,000 a month.
And that's the interesting thing, because Prop 58, which extended those protections to only transfers between parents and children, still excluded things like that David had, family relationships where you're trying to keep it in the family. And so there really is no protection in California law, as you found out, for transfers between siblings or, cousins, aunts or
nieces. I don't have kids.
Right?
And when I die, my niece is going to get my house and she's going to pay, $22 million a year for property taxes.
Right. Or, like the Cal Association of Realtors wants, she may wind up selling it. And that was the impetus behind Prop 19, which was bankrolled by the special interest lobbyists at Cal Association of Realtors to come in and figure out a way to loosen up those properties that have been held in families all this time. And it was an extremely deceptive campaign.
Yeah. Well, here's the part that I'm just... I come to the show this evening, sit down. I'm like, what's going on? What happened with SE? I got kicked out of the phone conference. I did the old school. I was on the phone, not on the internet.
That's right.
Because I had to be mobile, and I was waiting in the queue to
give your public comment.
Give public comment. They got up to for support. They got up to caller 260 and two. I mean, we were in the hundreds of support, and it just didn't stop. And here's another thing. What I was sharing with Jennifer is that there was all types of people. There were a lot of Asian American. There were a lot of Black American, even Hispanics. It was all minority people saying, "Look, we want to be able to pass on our property to our children."
Yeah, generational.
That's right.
Do you think it would have made a difference, though, if all those people had actually shown up in person?
But here's the thing: they did, Jeffy. The hearing room was full.
There you go.
We had people from Southern California, fly up, drive up. We had people from Northern California come down,
and the calls were pouring in.
There was nothing but support on the phone lines. There wasn't a single person
there was a lady,
in
she was
opposition.
with the Black American realtors.
She was
she spoke, and
right.
it resonated with my family, my grandfather, who I remember when our family business was struggling, and I was like, can't we just borrow some money or sell one of these properties? I mean, it'll help. It'll be a good injection. He's like, I remember when I couldn't own property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, dang, how old are you?
Well,
but here's the fact that, it's not that long ago, and these same people that claim to be inclusive and reparations, they're talking reparations, but at the same time, they are creating a vehicle to destroy the process of passing on wealth
Yep.
Yes.
to the next generation.
And that's what the realtor is, an African American woman who's a realtor in Northern California, and she explained very clearly how the disparate impact, the disproportionate impact that this is having on people of color and our lower income communities. Because when you raise property tax rates across the board, oh sure, you're going to hit those millionaires in Malibu, right? But who can afford it least? The little guy. The mom and pop, the small family, the single mom, the family that has children that have moved away, they cannot afford those property taxes.
Well,
and we can't, people cannot manage the new, cruel, and arbitrary demands of Prop 19. So SCA 4 was brought by one of our Republican senators, Kelly Ciardo, in order to simply take out that bad part of Prop 19. There were so many moving parts. This was the worst one. It's crushing people for the last 2 years. And that's what was before this one
blue or
committee, blue or red. And in fact, before the election, Prop 19 was panned by blue groups and red alike.
It's going to save seniors and stop wildfires.
That's what that was.
Didn't do any of those things.
Those were the lollipops that they threw out. They said it was tax break for seniors and wildfire victims, and it talked about both of those groups being able to purchase new properties, drag their tax basis with them. And for seniors, it was like you can move 3 times and purchase new properties, basically never pay new property tax the rest of your natural life. Well, those I called lollipops, and they were illusory promises. They were really shiny, exciting things for voters to think about, because guess what senior citizens don't do?
They don't move.
They don't move, and
Nope.
they don't purchase.
Nope.
But it sure sounded good, didn't it? Because senior citizens was people 55 and older. So that sounded good to some people. But it already existed in state law. People 55 and older already had the ability to drag their tax basis and move once. Right? That existed. Same thing with wildfire, disabled people, natural disaster victims. They already had that right in law. It was slightly different, but Prop 19 made people think that this was a brand new goodie.
Okay, but you still have people in Malibu that still haven't been able to build. So they can't take their property taxes anywhere. That's they still
right.
can't even build from the fire of 2018.
So here's the thing. People are like, well, wait a minute. I don't understand. What do those two have to do with anything? Those were the big things they promised to people. Those were the carrots that they threw out in the advertising. And they didn't really tell people that, by the way, when we give away all these free, low property tax basis, no changes to that, you can take it with you forever. We got to pay for that somewhere. And they paid for it by stealing the existing right of parents to give their property to the children without that reassessment. And that's called the parent-child transfer exclusion, and that's what they took away.
Yeah. And you know what? What timing? Because we have the baby boomers are starting to get to those years that they're going to start putting together plans, succession plans in their business, in their property, and they're going to get raped.
And speaking of business and property,
Right?
that's the great thing.
Yeah.
Under the past,
There ain't no passing unless they get a piece of the cheese.
And there used to be,
Or all of it.
The rule was you could pass your family home and also up to $1 million in other property. And that's going to be the mom and pop business, or maybe it's going to be that little vacation cabin, or maybe it's just another
Maybe
piece of property.
A little 3-unit apartment building.
Complex, exactly. You had the ability to transfer those things parent to child without reassessment. And this was freedom, you guys. You were free to do with it what you will.
Well, you work hard, you create something.
I'm not done traumatizing you. Just because you had someone pass away, it ain't over.
Exactly. That's right. And in fact, when that person dies now, you better hustle up and move that life of yours, and you better get into grandma's house in 12 months. Otherwise, you don't get that exclusion.
Right.
So
Don't you have to bring grandma with you, too?
Well, grandma has died.
Oh, sorry.
She'll be up on the
Under that
mantle. She'll be up on the mantle in the urn.
You're just hanging out on the
I
mantle of the
missed it. I missed
fireplace.
In that scenario, they
Unless
force
you're a little
you.
weird and you want her in your living room
Well,
in
you
the
know,
coffin.
okay, so maybe she's
there.
cremated. Who knows? But you have
go.
to. It's cruel, and it's unrealistic, and it demands.
But I thought
that
if the
family,
grandmother died, you couldn't take the property.
No, that's the whole point. When you're
Yeah.
in an inheritance situation, okay, so grandma has passed away, and now you got grandma's home. And some people are going to say, well, what are we going to do with grandma's home? You know what? Let's rent it to those college students nearby. Let's make a little income stream, and that's going to help our kids go to college. Or that's going to help do something. That'll help pay grandma's debts that all that, home shopping network she did before she died.
Book of the month.
the
club.
hoarding we had to read.
It
We had to
could
get rid of.
be whatever people wanted to do, because that's freedom, and you decide what you want to do with your property. Prop 19 and the Cal Association of Realtors decided that that's just not what people should do. And in fact, the only thing you can do is move in and occupy it as your primary residence. And if you don't, we will reassess you. We will quadruple your taxes, and likely you'll have to sell. And then we, the realtors, will get those commissions, because that home is on the open market at crazy California prices. And that's what Prop 19 is forcing people to do.
But I thought it was the child of the grandmother that had to move in.
Oh, here's the deal.
Here's
the thing. No,
because the grandchildren can't move into it.
Here's the thing. We had two laws, right? 1986, Prop 58 allowed the exclusion from reassessment for transfers between parent and child. And then a few years later, they added another one that said this can affect transfers from grandparent to grandchildren, but only if those parents are deceased. The whole point was, can you keep it in the family in that straight line from parents to children? So the people who have to move in are the heirs, whoever they may be. Right?
Okay.
But see, you run into a problem then.
Yeah.
What if it is a grandchild? How's that grandchild going to occupy that?
So the grandmother died. Her child is still alive. They're not going to move from wherever they're at because they live in Bel Air and grandma's over here in Northridge. So the granddaughter in Granada Hills says, "Oh, look, I can move into Granny's house."
That wouldn't work. That
It's a real story, huh?
That wouldn't. No, that wouldn't work.
But you got my life.
Names. We want names.
The problem with Prop 19 was it came in and it decided, not only did it decide for California families what they're supposed to do with their property, and watch this, when they're forced to sell because of the quadruple taxes and someone comes in, either an institutional developer or somebody else, who's checking to see if that's a primary residence for somebody? No one is.
In the meantime, what was interesting is I jumped on another call. It was random. I went there for one thing only. But I was listening to the senators in California talk about CEQA, right? It's been
the California Environmental Quality Act?
Yeah, which has been devastating for everybody. It's been weaponized, really, because one person in the community could sit there and just stop an entire multi-million, billion-dollar project. And so they wanted to loosen those CEQA things up, and they wanted to raise the bar or standard to make it more cumbersome for the community. Basically, it was originally allowed to empower the community to make changes, right? No, we don't need that no more. It's too much.
Now all they do is carve outs
what we're trying to do.
Exceptions.
Now it's carve outs and
that's
exceptions is what they're working on. So something, any of you who know CEQA or been part of CEQA, just pay attention to what's being done up there in Sacramento.
Well, and here's what we have to tell the listeners. So what happened, all of this bad about Prop 19, it's been going on for 2 years now because it was enacted in 2020. It immediately went into effect February of 2021. It's the reason I was on this show for the very first time 2 years ago to talk about the
Comes
bill.
back to haunt.
It does. There was a bill to put in a 2-year grace period. The legislature literally almost to the month 2 years ago killed that bill, suffocated it. It was held.
Now who in the legislature killed that bill? The Republicans?
Well, actually, David, it wasn't. It was the Democrats, believe it or not.
For some reason, that's kind of like a recurring story.
Theme.
Is that regardless of the challenges that we're facing with vaccinations, parental rights,
property rights,
everything that we're facing,
anything having to do with rights,
is a direct result. The responsibility raised squarely on the Democrat leadership and the people who vote for them.
That's right. These are the people you elect. And here's what happened at that hearing. SCA 4 simply would have been the legislature placing it on the ballot so that the Californians could decide, hey, was I deceived with Prop 19? And do I really want to repeal Prop 58 and take away my right to give property to my children without a whopping tax bill? Do I really want to do that? It was going to be put on the ballot so that the people could decide. And the Democrats just couldn't stand that.
You can't let them decide for themselves.
They couldn't, and in
That's
fact,
not their way.
this is what's ridiculous. Anna Caballero, who is the chair of the Senate Governance and Finance Committee that heard this bill, she actually said, "Oh no, I think the voters knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. I don't believe it was a deceptive campaign. I don't believe any of that. They knew. So I don't want to disturb the will of the people by putting this on the ballot when that's exactly what they did by putting Prop 19 on the ballot, knowing that it was going to result in something enacted by the people to be eliminated."
So
And
now
it was.
so now where are we at? We can't fix it.
Well, it's dead. Well, no, here's the thing. That bill, sadly, is dead forever for this session, because if it doesn't pass out of committee, it doesn't go anywhere. My goodness, they could have just let it go through committee, for goodness sake.
But now where are we at?
Okay, so now this means we are we need the people to do it. And we're going to do another initiative. And Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is, of course, going to be behind it. So this means we're back into the position of needing signatures and volunteers galore to get this thing on the ballot via the initiative process. So we're going to...
And what does the signature count look like on that?
You know what? We were just looking that up before we got on air.
We guessed 700,000.
We were guessing around 700,000. I don't know the exact number.
Oh, it's like how
but
it's
the recall.
It's like having a recall.
Yes, it is. It's going to be the recall of Prop 19, the bad part of Prop 19. But instead of the legislature helping us out and just placing it on the ballot the way they put Prop 19 on the ballot, they said, no, you're going to have to do it yourself, you people. You're going to have to spend the time and the money.
Not you people.
It was the Democrats in the legislature that put that on the ballot.
Yes. Well, you know what? Sadly, it was pushed on the ballot by both Democrats and Republicans. And I have said this many times.
There are some real estate agents that are Republican.
It makes me really sad to report that we had 6 Republicans who not only enabled Prop 19, they actively endorsed it. They put their names and faces on the slick flyers that Cal Association of Realtors blanketed the state with, and that included none other than Brian Dahle. And Brian and Megan Dahle both endorsed this measure. They listened to the former Howard Jarvis director who became a lobbyist, and none of these Republicans who supported this, and that includes Scott Wilk, Marie Waldron, Megan and Brian Dahle, Jay Obernolte, et cetera, and sadly, our Liberty fighter, James Gallagher, who's up in the North State, and they had fire issues, I understand. They endorsed it because I think they just didn't do their homework.
They didn't read it.
They didn't. But even if you read it, it's confusing. They needed to be asking attorneys. They needed to be having a hearing on how is this thing really going to work.
Seems like it's a pretty big deal.
A total big deal.
But they have so many bills, Jennifer.
Well, you know what? Here's why. This is why it's very clear.
They have 1,200 bills
It's true. But you know what they opposed? They successfully opposed Prop 15. That was the direct attack on Prop 13. That was once again the attack. They wanted to do a split roll tax initiative. Remember that? It was tax the businesses and take away Prop 13 from business properties, which would have killed mom and pops.
Yeah.
So they opposed that, and that thing failed, thank goodness. But then they turned around and supported Prop 19, which was the lateral attack on Prop 13.
So maybe we can get them to support this initiative.
You know what? I was really hoping for some statements from the hearing desk, because Brian Dahle is on that committee, and he said nothing. He did not rise in defense of repealing this.
Who paid him?
He did not. Well, I'm sad to say, but if you look at donations in their campaign coffers,
who paid him?
The Cal Association of Realtors made very generous donations to the senators who supported Prop 19. That's just a fact. And it's an ugly fact.
Like I said, who paid him?
Yep. And unfortunately, you know, they call the lobbyists and they call the special interests the fourth house, because they carry
I thought
such
they were the
weight.
third house.
Sorry, the third house, not the fourth wall in drama. Third house, exactly.
Okay.
That's
Wow.
right. Because they are such a... and Kevin Kiley was the only legislator up there who refused all
Why does that name keep coming
lobbyists.
up?
Because he's
a
great.
congressman
Because he's
now.
awesome. And that's why.
He's a
awesome.
congressman. Hey, if it weren't for him, we wouldn't have our legal eagle. So
That's
So-
very
we
true.
love his name.
I don't know. I you know, when he came out here, well, he's in Beverly Hills or something. I think we went to go see him, And
at Kitson. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
but
We had
that's
the
how,
Kevin
that's
Kiley
how
event.
David and I met Jennifer.
That's right. Kevin
really?
Kiley
We
book
went to that
signing.
too.
I thought we knew you before that.
Of course
No.
we did. We've known each other forever.
Yeah, it's been
You were
forever.
at the
Feels
book
like
signing
forever.
with us. We were at the book signing all together, the three of us, when we met her.
That's how we
We were in
met.
Pasadena.
Yep.
No, it was Glendale.
No, we were at the Glendale,
That's
the
right.
Glendale
At the-
Theater.
yes,
the
that-
Glendale Theater.
The center.
That's right. That was the first time we met Kylie, actually.
That was
So
the
that's
first
why
time
he
we
keeps
met
coming
him.
up. All right.
Yeah.
He's active, huh?
Well, yeah, now he's in
We're-
Congress.
Yes, he's in
Yeah.
Congress,
Now
and
he's-
he
now he's
is
a California
successfully
congressman.
fighting the nomination of Julie Su, who was our former California Secretary of Labor, who Biden has nominated to run labor for the nation.